Hello, students, and happy Monday. I could not be there today, so I am recording your lesson for you. That way your substitute can deliver the lesson using video in Zoom. So I hope you find this helpful and that you can use it to help you with your work today. So first things first, you need to find today's presentation in Canvas. It says 10.5 presentation. You are going to use this presentation later on when we talk about our grammar activity for today. So you will be using that next. While you're finding it, I am going to go over some for your informations or FYIs. The first thing is that your work needs to be completed daily. So on Monday, your work needs to be done on Monday. And I keep saying it needs to be done during LLIS's class time. What does that mean for you? It means that from today, since Monday's a weird day, you have 10:06 to 11:07 to do your LLIS work. So I meet with you live for the beginning. The rest is your independent work time. Whatever is not completed, you need to complete it after school, not during your other classes. If you're period 3, your LLIS time is 11:12 to 12:13. If you're period 5, your LLIS time is 12:58 to 1:59. That means you have about an hour to do all of your LLIS work. All right, so make sure you're doing that starting today, because remember, tomorrow I'm going to keep students behind who haven't turned in their work in Canvas, and then the work kind of piles up. We don't want it to pile up. All right, so that was just a little FYI. We're going to start our learning activity for today, which is going to start with Cornell Notes. You're going to need your comp book and something to write with. Please go get that now. While you're getting it, I'm going to talk to you about taking Cornell Notes using a video. So we're going to use this example video for our in-class Cornell Notes, and it's about civilizations because we're starting a history unit this week. And videos are kind of tricky with Cornell Notes. We need to make sure that we play it for a little while, then pause. We're going to pause so we can write. If we don't pause, a lot of details fly by us, and we want to make sure that we really think them through and pull out the main idea or the really, really, really important facts from the video and use it to write down in our Cornell Notes. So you should have your comp book. You should also have your writing utensil in your hand. And we're going to do notes together first. So make sure you're copying exactly what it is we're doing for notes on this video. All right, so on my screen, you'll see I have my notes set up on the left. I drew the line straight down just outside of the margin, and I titled it the video's name. The title of the video is The History of Civilization for Kids, How Civilization Began. And I abbreviated CIV for civilization just because it's a long word. And the date 10/5/2020. And you can see my videos here just so you can see it. That way I could show you my notes and the video at the same time. So while you're setting up your page, I'm going to start this video, and I'm listening for the absolute most important ideas to write down in my notes.
Today we're going to learn about civilization. A long, long time ago, thousands and thousands of years ago, people lived very differently than they do today. Instead of living in a house or a city and buying their food at a store, people lived in small groups, hunting animals for meat and gathering wild food like vegetables.
All right, so I'm going to pause there about 30 seconds and write down the absolute most important detail in my notes. The most important detail I heard is that long, long ago, I'm just going to put long time ago, people lived as hunters and gatherers. That's what I heard. And it said hunting animals and and gathering seeds and vegetables, I believe is what it says. Remember, the awesome thing about video is that you can actually go back, scroll backwards, and listen to it again. I'm just going to put seeds. I believe it's seeds based on where I paused it. Okay, and then I'm going to go listen for the next important detail and press play on my video again.
Vegetables, berries, and fruits.
Oh, now it says vegetables, berries, fruits. I'm just going to write veggies, fruit, berries.
We call these people hunter-gatherers, which is easy to remember because that's what they did. Most hunter-gatherers lived so long ago that we have no written record or history of them.
All right, so I'm going to pause again. It actually labeled the people who lived long, long ago as hunter-gatherers. So I'm going to write that as a vocabulary word on the left side. It says they lived so long ago that there was no written record of what it was they did. And you can see in that picture, they're probably going to elaborate what was the record that tells us more about hunter-gatherers. I might just put no written record, just because we know that history is about written record.
Since they lived before written history began, we call them prehistoric.
Ah, perfect. They just defined it for us right there. What that means when there's no written record, it means prehistoric or prehistory, because we know that history is about written record. So I wrote that on the left side of my notes because it's a vocabulary word that we can define as a time in history when there's no written record.
Most of what we know about prehistoric people was learned by archaeologists. Archaeologists are scientists who study humans by looking at what people have left behind.
Nice. So we learned a little bit about archaeologists last week, but the video elaborates and says that archaeologists, and I know I'm going to spell this one wrong because it is a tough word to spell. Archaeologists. Did I get it right? Maybe. All right, archaeologists are scientists that study things that humans left behind. I don't need to write all of that. Study things humans left behind. Take a couple words out.
Archaeologists discovered that at some point, the hunter-gatherers learned to grow their own food and domesticated animals like cows, pigs, chickens, and goats.
So they learned how to grow their own crops and domesticate animals at some point in time. This is what archaeologists discovered. So I might want to add that to the same column of notes. Study things humans left behind. And then I'm going to put HG for hunter-gatherers, just so it's an abbreviation. Hunter-gatherers grew crops and domesticated animals. Domesticated mean, I wonder? I'm actually going to leave animals here and move domesticated, except it doesn't want to let me do that. So I'm just going to make a new text box over here because I think domesticated is a word that I would want to look up in terms of vocabulary because I'm not really sure what that means. And I'll define it for you since I know what it means. It's kind of like when we have dogs, right? We domesticate dogs, meaning they used to be wild, but now we're going to train to keep them in our presence and use them for either milk or use them to grow and harvest for meat.
This is called agriculture.
Sweet, another vocabulary word. So I'm just going to add to my notes and put equals agriculture. Sure, spelling is not my favorite on the keyboard today, apparently.
Agriculture helped provide a steady source of food. People were even able to grow and store more food than they needed. Hunter-gatherers needed to move around to find animals and food.
I'm going to pause here. It said that they actually had more food than they needed because they were able to grow it for themselves. I'm going to keep in the same area here of my notes, and I'm just going to add to it. Could grow more food than they needed. This would be like a technological advancement because since before they had to go roam, like it's saying, they had to go walk and find their food versus growing it right where they live.
But in order to farm, people need to stay in one place. Staying in one place with extra food, people started to build villages. More and more people were able to live together because there was enough food.
Right, so they started to make villages with more and more people living together. I'm going to add that here, villages. More and more people.
There was so much food available that some people began to be able to do work that was not directly related to getting enough food to eat. Those people started to specialize or concentrate on becoming experts in one kind of work. That meant that one person could learn how to make really good pottery.
So because they had so much food, they could now specialize. I'm going to say specialty. They could focus on a specialty, and we just heard like pottery is one of those specialties.
And another person could learn to weave better cloth, and they could trade those things to the people growing food and get what they needed to eat.
So they could focus on a specialty like pottery, or you just probably heard them weaving cloth. And then how would they use those things that they made? They would use them to trade for food. That's a very important detail.
As technology improved and inventions like the wheel and irrigation allowed people to grow even more food, villages grew bigger and became towns and cities.
All right, so they started making inventions, which led them to grow their cities or their villages into towns and their towns into cities. I'm going to put on my notes, villages expanded to towns and cities. That means they got bigger.
People began trading with people from other cities and then with places very far away. In order to keep track of these trades and their increasingly complicated lives, people began to develop writing.
Ooh, even more, right? So they used to trade for food. Then the villages started trading with each other. You could trade with other villages, which is a big technological advancement. And now they're developing writing. I don't know if it's learned how to write. I would put so they can keep track of all of this trade.
Several different systems of writing began as something called pictograms, or pictures of things, and then gradually changed to represent ideas and then sounds.
So it went from being pictures to sounds. That's an important detail because it tells you the history of how language was developed.
Through all of these changes, people developed societies known as civilizations. A civilization is a culture and a way of life that usually has a few specific characteristics.
All right, so because they have all of these characteristics, they now are developed into civilizations. I'm going to write that over in the margin. It sounds like I'm going to find out more about what specific things make up a civilization.
Number 1, civilizations need to have agriculture and extra food available.
All right, it's telling us exactly what makes up a civilization. It says, number 1, agriculture. I'm actually going to put a number 1. And we don't have to define agriculture because we already have it in our notes up here. So we can just leave it as agriculture.
They have large cities filled with lots of people.
Okay, large cities. Number 2.
They have specialized labor and well-developed trade.
So specialized labor, that was what we called specialties. Specialties / labor. And then it said they have elaborate trade.
In almost all cases, they have a written language.
And they have a written language.
Civilizations have strong governments. They have shared values. In ancient times, usually a shared religion.
All right, I'm going to keep adding because that's very clear what's here. So it said shared values. I missed one. I'm going to actually scroll back like this. Written language, government. That's the one I missed. So government, shared values, and then we're going to keep going here. Almost complete.
As well, they have their own style of architecture and artwork.
So architecture and artwork is the last one. Wow, it's kind of complex to have kind of set up a civilization, right? And I don't really necessarily know what architecture is. I might move it over to the margin or underline it so that way I come back to it later.
First known civilization developed over 7,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. Since then, many different and fascinating civilizations began popping up all over the world, and there are still many today. Do you think you can name any civilizations?
All right, so the last little detail it said was that one of them is Mesopotamia, the first one, but we're actually going to study Mesopotamia, so I'm not going to add that to my notes just right now. All right, so you can see I have a lot of main ideas here or details. I want to make sure I have room for my summary just to show you that space for the summary. So I'm going to make my notes change just a teeny bit here so that way you can see what I would do on the bottom of my page for my summary. So I'm going to go to the bottom and remember to draw the summary line first. So that's what I'm going to do here. You should draw a line underneath your notes as well. And I'm just going to go, it's going to be a little bit crooked. Otherwise, it's going to go through my notes. That sounds so bad. And I'm going to start my summary. Remember, your summary is going to be based on what you have included in your left or right side margin, just what you think is the most important. And I'm going to be really general with this summary because there's a lot of notes on here and it could be pages of summary. We don't want pages of summary. We want to make it short, but with enough detail that we understand the content of what we learned about. So I'm going to put, we learned that hunter-gatherers are people who found their own food a long time ago. And we know about archaeologists from our other notes, so I might not even add much about archaeologists. Maybe just a quick blurb that archaeologists found out that hunter-gatherers learned how to grow. We call that farming, right? So maybe we just say farm animals and crops. And then because of this, they were able to grow their villages and have specialties. And that led to them trading with other villages. And then to keep track of that, remember they said the last thing was this, they developed a system of writing. In order to keep track of those trades. And because of all of this development or growth, they were now a civilization. I'm not going going to write these categories for civilizations. I could list them and add one more sentence, but you can see here that I'm starting to run out of space on my notes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause and not add this detail in. You would be correct in saying that we are going to be studying all of those characteristics of civilizations. That's where we're actually headed next in our content that we're learning. So I'm going to post these notes for you in Canvas so that way you have something to reference about what your notes should look like as an ideal for video notes. We are actually going to be doing an assignment today where you're taking your own video notes. So you're going to do the same thing in your comp book, just like this, but on your own video by yourself, including all of the components of Cornell Notes. All right, so the substitute could pause here for a little bit just to make sure everybody's caught up where they're at. But like I said, you don't have to copy everything yet because it will be in Canvas for you. And you're not actually turning these notes in. These are for you just to reference and look at. All right, so we've covered our Cornell Notes for today on videos. And we have a short grammar lesson that we're going to do together before you do your own grammar work. I noticed in your IB Timeline projects that there were a lot of fragments or incomplete sentences or sentences that just weren't quite complete in themselves. So I want to give a quick grammar lesson on what exactly is a complete sentence. So I'm going to give you a short video to watch.
If you want your reader understanding what you say, complete sentences will get you on your way. Subjects and predicates must always be combined to convey to your reader all the thoughts you had in mind.
So, a complete sentence is made of a subject and a predicate. You can see the example sentence says the subject is the fish and the predicate is swam in the lake. We're going to talk about this a little bit.
Subjects tell just who or what the sentence is about. Mr. Smith the dentist or the pig with the big snout. Predicates tell just what the subject did. Took a walk, pulled out a tooth, or slobbered on a kid.
So you heard the subject is who or what the sentence is about. The predicate is what they are doing. It's the action word or the verb that tells what they're doing.
Timmy ate the muffin, Randall took a walk. Abby bought a goldfish, her mother was in shock. The teacher read a chapter book, the brown dog ate a bone. The mean lady yelled and screamed, the man hung up the phone. If you want your reader understanding what you say, complete sentences will get you on your way. Subjects and predicates must always be combined to convey to your reader all the thoughts you had in mind.
All right. So if you are writing sentences, you always want to make sure you have a subject, a predicate, and that it is a complete thought. Like you finish your whole thought. That's what makes a complete sentence. Here are a couple examples of complete sentences. The cat plays piano. So if you think about this, the subject or who the sentence is about is the cat. What is the cat doing is the predicate, plays piano. And then we have another example. This one's a little longer. So you think about it this way. Who is the sentence about and what are they doing? Subject, predicate. The first says, the Lopez twins come from Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. So who is the sentence about? The Lopez twins. And what is it they're doing? It says come, and then it has more in that verb phrase. Come from Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. That's the predicate in that sentence. So we're going to look at some example sentences. You can do more of these on your own. We're only going to do 2 of each of these so you can see the difference between a complete sentence and an incomplete sentence. So if you look at number 1, these are all complete sentences because they have a subject and a predicate. Number 1 says, we read postcards from our Asian pen pals. So I want you to think about, who is that sentence about? And you could have said, and what is we doing? Okay, so we is some people in this, right? What is we doing? They are reading postcards, right? So that is your predicate right there. It's actually the whole thing. Read postcards from our Asian pen pals. All of that is your predicate. All right, so I underlined the subject and then I found the predicate and highlighted it. The next sentence says, our school has a homework hotline. So what is this sentence about? The subject. Well, you said our school. And then it says has a homework hotline. This one's a little tricky because the verb in this sentence is has. And what is it that they has? A homework hotline. That whole section is the predicate right now. Now the next one's even trickier. It says, will you practice guitar before dinner? So will you practice guitar before dinner? Who is this sentence about? Hopefully you said you. And what is you doing? They're practicing guitar before dinner. That is the predicate. Good. Now we're going to try to find the subject and predicate in a couple more sentences. So let's look at this first sentence here. It says, definitely mailed the invitations yesterday. I want you to ask yourself, who is the sentence about and what is that who doing? Hopefully you noticed that there is no who in this sentence. It's missing the subject. We don't know who definitely mailed the invitations yesterday. So it only has a predicate. Since it only has one part of the sentence, we call this a fragment. It's a piece of a sentence, not the complete sentence. Look at number 2. It says, water is composed of oxygen and hydrogen. That shouldn't have been in there, actually. I thought I took this one out. This one is a complete sentence. We're going to skip that one and ignore it and do the next one. Number 2, going to the Washington Monument. So you're asking yourself, who is going to the Washington Monument? And what are they doing? Going to the Washington Monument. We're missing again the subject. This just has the verb going to the Washington Monument or the predicate phrase. If I look at number 3, who or what? Right? Who or what is the sentence about and what are they doing? It just says stop. Who stopped? Anybody? It's hard to tell, right? It doesn't say. So buses stop? I don't know. Again, it's missing a subject. This just has a predicate. We're actually going to skip the next one and look just at number 4. It says Alonso's brothers and sisters. So who or what is the sentence about? And what are they doing? I don't know what they're doing, right? It just has the who or what. It just has Alonso's brothers and sisters, and they're not doing anything. So this is a fragment, again, because it doesn't have the predicate. It's missing. In your assignment for today, what you are going to do, this I was going to do with you in class, but I'm not with you today. So this is going to be your independent practice for today. It says you're going to underline the subject once, just like I showed you on the last slide. I underlined it when you find the subject, and then you're going to highlight the predicate. Remember, the highlight key is up here in your menu options. So if I wanted to highlight house, once I highlight it with my mouse, I go up to the top where this little highlighter pin is. I click it and I select a color to highlight it. I'm not picky about what color you highlight it. It just needs to be highlighted in some color that's interesting to you. So you're going to underline the subject, highlight the predicate. Not all of these have a subject or a predicate. Okay, if it has both, then it is a complete sentence, and you would put a capital C at the end like this. Not letting me type right here. I'm going to put Shift C like that. That tells me that you think that's a complete sentence. If it only had a subject and not a predicate, you're going to put an F, fragment, a piece of a sentence. So if it only has a subject or only has a predicate, you're going to type an F for that. Again, you'll find this in your presentation in Canvas. You're going to type directly onto the slides yourself and submit in Canvas. All right, so those were our lessons for today. You have 3 things to work on. I am going to show you in your planner what you should write. You should also be doing so. It is Monday, the 5th of October. Since we're on a new week, I turn my page to that new week and I'm going to write my assignments. You have Cornell Notes video. These are not the Cornell Notes from today that we did together. These are on your own. The video is called Hunters and Gatherers, and it's really similar content. So hopefully you'll find it even more solidifying about what hunters and gatherers were. You also have your 20 minutes of bear reading and this grammar activity that I showed you just now. So on your planner, we're going to write those 3 things for today. Can't get it in the window. There we go. You have Cornell Notes hunter-gatherer video, 20-minute bear, and the grammar activity. The sub can pause here so that way you can see this content or go back if you need it. All right, I can't wait to see you all turn in all of your work today on time, and that way I can give you feedback as quickly as possible. And I will see you tomorrow on Tuesday. Have a good day.